to Issued for Construction. I'm your host, Jonathan Jacobs, and today I've got with me a gentleman who's an architect, but not your standard architect. Because, there are different kinds of architects out there, specialize in all different kinds of things, and most of you who are architects know that. But did you know that there is a specialty in architecture that designs fountains? Because today I've got with me a gentleman who works at a practice called DO, which is Dan Euser Waterarchitecture. I have Steve Euser with me, who's been working with his dad for years, and they have been designing fountains all over the world. And if you're listening to this right now, there's a good chance you'll have experienced one of them. So, Steve?
Hey, it's nice to be here.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
Also, what none of you know, Steve and I are neighbors.
Yep, just down the street.
So Steve, if you can, we'll start off, we'll go all the way back into the beginnings of your life. Where were you born? What did that look like?
Sure.
What kind of kid were you? Were you exploratory? Were you scientific? Were you mathematic? Were you creative? Let's get into it.
All right. I would say born in North York General.
Yep.
1982. So dating myself immediately. I grew up as a kid, very creative, very outdoorsy. I would say, summertime was really about going camping. That was like our passion as a family.
Steve Euser grew up making things. Bow and arrows from saplings, sculptures from campsite clay, furniture from CNC cut plywood that ended up in Euser magazine. He understands better than most that the materials you choose and the people you trust to help you choose them make all the difference in what you end up with. That ethos is exactly why Kaplan's Appliances has been a partner of this show. Kaplan's has been serving the design and build community in Toronto for decades, and what sets them apart is not just the product selection, it is the people. Rob and Janine and the entire team there bring a level of knowledge and personal investment to every conversation that you simply do not find at a big box retailer. Whether you are an architect speccing out a full kitchen for a high-end residential project, a designer sourcing appliances for a client who will not compromise, or a homeowner who just wants to get it right the first time, Kaplan's is the call you make before you make any other call. Steve spent years learning that getting the right specialist involved early in a project changes everything about what you can achieve. The same is true here. Do not wait until the cabinets are in to think about the appliances. Get to Kaplan's early, talk to Janine, and let them be a part of the process from the start. Head to the liner notes for more, or reach me directly at jonathan@issuedforconstruction.ca. That's JONATHAN at issuedforconstruction.ca, and I will make a personal introduction to Janine so you can meet the team. Now, back to Steve.
We were always out in the woods, go to Killarney, go to Grundy, go exploring other provincial parks.
And you remember this from being how old?
Yeah. My mom would always say, you've been camping since before you were born. And that was pretty much true. We would do at least 2 to 3 weeks every summer.
Okay.
Of solid camping, often in 2-week stint and then a 1-week stint somewhere else.
And is this backcountry canoeing, or are you hiking?
When we were younger, it was car camping.
Car camping.
With tent car camping.
Yeah.
Provincial parks, and then no trailer or anything like that. My dad, and I think more so than my mom, was a bit of a purist in that regard.
Yeah.
I've got to be in an old canvas tent. But until we were old enough to carry packs and canoes and all that stuff, which was probably around 12 or 13 when I was around that age. Okay. My younger brother's 2 years younger. My older brother's 2 years older. I'm right in the middle of the group there.
Yeah. But
we were all kind of big enough at that point to go for a week interior where it was worthwhile to, have a backpack.
Okay.
And I loved it. It was passion, definitely. Canoeing, being out in the open water, going hiking. We spent so many hours. We'd get up, crack of dawn. Okay, we're going to go on a hike, and it's 7.5, 8 hours later that we get home, which is great. it was really a part of my life for sure. And then creativity side of things, I was always drawing, sketching.
Okay.
We would dig up clay when we were camping, and make stuff on the picnic tables at the beach.
Like, what would you make?
Let's say everything from bowls to sculptures of like castles or ridiculous things like a little toilet, like whatever we could think of. Sometimes I would try and make more complicated things. I mean, you're not using refined clay at that point, so it's a little messy. And then just drawing and painting. I was really into watercolor as a kid, and sketching. Always had a sketchbook, always had a pencil with me. Definitely really took opportunity to do that when we were out and downtime, because mostly we were like free roaming when we went camping. And even outside of camping, I did a lot of art. Just loved doing art as a kid.
You drawing? Were you painting?
So I would say for most of my like early years, mostly drawing, sketching, and then practicing with watercolor. I really liked watercolor. I think it was more accessible to me, because you could start with like tempera paint and use it like watercolor.
Yeah.
And I remember my first watercolor paper that my parents got me one year. I couldn't tell you whether it was for Christmas or my birthday or whatever. And I painted a wolf, and I was so proud of it. And the proportions were questionable, but but I liked it. It was good. And that was just like weekends or after school doing that sort of thing.
And what were your interests when academically? Like, what did you feel came most naturally to you?
I would say for me, I was okay at math, and I was okay at English, and science I really liked, but art I was very good at. And grade 7, had a teacher who went up to teach art. This is like my parents sent us to a private Christian school when I was a kid.
Okay.
They wanted us to have a good upbringing.
Yeah.
So, anyway, he went up to the board and he started drawing stick figures, and I was pissed. I didn't say that to him and lash out directly, but I remember going home from school and just being angry about it. And so I think it was my mom who had suggested, well, if you don't like it, suggest, if you could teach art to your classmates. You're good at it. You know what you're doing. So I did. He made me come up with a proposal, and he's like, okay, I'll hear you out. I said, okay, well, I'd like to teach some color theory and how to render shapes in 3D, and how to do 2-point perspective and 3-point perspective. And so like grade 7 and 8,
you were TA.
I was helping TA on a grade school level art class. And I think the teacher was very happy to do that, because it just wasn't his forte.
Yeah.
He was kind of stuck with doing it. Shoot, that was a lot of fun. It certainly opened my eyes to where everybody else was at when it came to art, and how far I had already grown in what I had kind of just been dabbling with.
Right.
Yeah. It was definitely an eye-opening experience for that side of things. But I think, outside of the art stuff too, I mean, I would build forts in the woods, and I made a bow and arrow one year. My dad helped me cast.
What wood did you use?
Just like sapwood from some tree branch I cut down, and it was not like solid. Like the rope was nylon, so it stretched. I got like a few shots, and then I'd have to tighten it up again. Made some arrows and cast arrowheads with solder because it was softer. My dad did the torch part.
Yeah.
I was too young at the time.
Yeah.
But ended up using it in like a class project. We had to make a video. This was like early days of VHS.
Yep.
And shoot, leadhead 3000 or leadhead 2000. What we called it, because it was like lead solder back in the day. We weren't allowed to like handle it because it was lead, and we knew it was not going to be healthy. That was allowed to use that bow and arrow until got it stuck in a neighbor's roof. But we were doing stupid stuff, me and my friends.
That's okay. I mean, that's part of being exploratory as a kid, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What are the boundaries?
Yeah.
And how was your teacher receptive to you being a TA when it came time to conclude that role? What was he thankful for it? Did the students appreciate it? Were they receptive to you as a peer, but also as their teacher?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of them knew already that I was decent at drawing and art, and that helped. But certainly there was definitely a few snickers at the beginning, and the teacher was definitely unsure of the situation. And, I after teaching a few classes that way and getting everybody to, do some projects and whatnot, the teacher still had to do his thing, meet the curriculum requirements and whatnot. Right. But at least everybody was on a page that was better, and I was happy with that. That's fine. But yeah, it was definitely one of those experiences that was good.
Okay. And how did you determine what you wanted to study when you were leaving high school?
Good question. I really wanted to do art in some degree. I had in high school gotten into like the digital media arts. The school had a student body that was really good at fundraising, and they managed to raise money to get like a blue screen installed in a like media room in the school. And at the same time, they got a computer that could run, I think it was Lightwave, which was like an earlier 3D modeling and animation software.
Cool.
And then when I discovered that, being artsy fartsy, it's like, oh, this is perfect. And so I wanted to do that, and ended up in the digital media arts program at Seneca York.
Yeah.
Ended up in that program. It's a 2-year program, diploma program, and I enjoyed it. I felt like I was in, upper ranks of my class. I wouldn't say I was the best at it. There was definitely other people who were better.
Yeah.
And I was fine with that. Like, it
grades
was a good skill set.
Grades don't necessarily correlate to earnings. So.
Well, exactly. And it's also one of those things where it was like everybody had things that they were interested in.
Yes.
Like across the class, there's some people who were there as like a prelude to going into video editing and special effects. That's what they really wanted to do. They didn't care about the modeling and whatnot. It's just give me special effects. I want to blow stuff up.
Right.
But coming out of school, it was I want to say 2001. For that, the industry had just slowed down. There was an overabundance of people who could do animation and whatnot. People were getting laid off from Pixar and Disney, and so getting hired somewhere where you were fresh and a firm that was hiring was basically picking people up at pennies on the dollar. The competition was extremely stiff.
Right.
And so I think like 1 or 2 people actually in my class, from what I recall, actually ended up in animation directly after that.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them ended up going back to school for other things or moving into sort of different sort of side related fields. And so for me, after knocking on doors and getting some interviews and going nowhere, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to work summers. My dad had been doing fountain stuff for years, and I've been helping him since I was a kid in the summer when I was in summer holidays doing mock-ups. And by mock-up, I mean we would build full-scale sections of a fountain that was going to go in as a test to prove out the fluid mechanics and water performance and character of the display so that it could get approved for construction. And this, you can't really scale water, so you would always have to do it at full scale and then simulate it with wood and foam and stuff. So I was painting mock-ups, and I would be inside of the mock-up pushing stairs or something like that to change the like the depth of the tread versus the riser, and like absolutely soaked while my dad's having a meeting out front talking with client who'd flown in from wherever to see it. And so I'd been doing that for years, and so I basically worked with him again for a summer. And by this point I'm 19, 20, and I've done the computer animation stuff, and that's gotten me nowhere at this point in terms of a job. And so I was like, okay, well, I really enjoy this, and I really enjoy nature, and my dad's a landscape architect. Maybe I'll go do that. And so I applied to Guelph, University of Guelph, landscape architecture bachelor program.
Yep.
Got in, ended up doing the 5-year program with a break in between. There was a year where I needed a break.
So what did you do?
I bummed around Europe, worked for my dad.
Hold on a second. You can't just say bummed around Europe, then go to work for your dad.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Europe.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I mean, coming out of my 4th year, I was in need of a break. I was burnt out.
Yeah, you'd been at Seneca York for how many years?
Well, Seneca York was 2 years.
Then you were 3 years. Then you did 4 years. So you were 7 years of post-secondary.
Yeah.
This is following OAC.
Yeah. Didn't do OACs.
You didn't do OAC. You
no, I
skipped
did grade 12, and then I skipped OACs. Yeah.
Okay. Did you go directly into university, or did you take a year off?
I went directly from grade 12 into diploma program, Seneca York.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, same applies.
Yeah.
You hadn't stopped school in many years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So for me, it was really just necessary to do that for my own mental sanity. I think I was just not in a good spot to continue.
Yeah.
So I had some savings and basically bought an open-ended ticket flying into Charles de Gaulle. And
did you have a destination or anything that you had on a list of things you wanted to do?
I kind of had this notion in my head that I wanted to see cities and how people lived more than really exploring the countryside than anything else. I think I was at that time in my life, very fascinated by how people use space and how people interact with each other, and just kind of, my only context was here in Toronto,
right?
And really most of my life in the suburbs of Toronto, which is, it's a car haven, but that's about it. There's not a whole lot of, natural public interaction outside of going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
So anyway, I basically kind of went with that mindset. I didn't really have too much of a plan. I did not bring very much with me.
What were some of the key items?
I had a couple pairs of briefs, a couple pairs of pants, a pair of shorts, some shirts, and a hat.
Okay.
And I bought a jacket when I was there because it was September when I left, and I got back sometime early or mid-December when I ran out of money.
Okay.
But I basically I lived out of, I don't know if you remember, Molson Canadian used to have those cooler bags. You'd get a 2-4 of beer cans in a zipper bag with Molson Canadian. That's all I brought with me to Europe. So I had very little to carry, which was great because everything was carry on. I never had to pay for luggage, and I could just, you want to go hop on a bus? I just go do the thing. So started in Paris, 2 weeks there, then found a cheap flight to Dublin from Ryanair. At the time, if you booked more than 2 weeks in advance, you could get it for €1 plus taxes. So that's what I did. And I went to Dublin, bummed around Dublin for a week. And when I say bummed around, it's more like I would wander around the city, explore the city, see how things are kind of laid out. I would be walking almost everywhere. I think I wore out the pair of shoes by the time I was done. but like sit on a cafe corner, just watch people go by, or like I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit, but like at one point I was in Milan for a week and staying with my little brother's friend because my little brother had moved to the Netherlands and was going to school there, and he was like, "Oh, you should just stay with these people." And I'm like, "Okay." So they had a little flat, and I basically used it as a home camp. But I would just wander around the city all day, and I remember sitting on the steps of the cathedral in Milan City Square and just watch people and watching, the this sort of performative nature of the city, at being this very like design forward city. People, walking around, showing off their new boyfriend, their new girlfriend, their new bag, their new clothes, the new car, whatever. They're just like hanging out. We don't have that, or at the time, it didn't feel like we had that kind of thing happening here. The spaces for it, I don't know if it's whether they're too new or the culture is just different or what, but it was fascinating to see. And so that kind of experience and really interacting that way, and it's more of an passive observation. I would spend evenings oftentimes out of hostels, and so you get to know the hostel folks, but they're all travelers too, right?
Yeah.
So it's a different group than the group who actually live in the place. So, being apart from them for most of the day and just, being able to observe and hang out and see the architecture and see how people use their parks and how they're, moving around their city and, what are they doing? Are they having a coffee? Are they, it's early afternoon. People are just having a siesta. Like, it's fantastic. So yeah,
being immersed in the culture.
Yeah, being immersed. I mean, like insofar as a week or two in a place can afford you,
Of course,
right? It's always a taste. It's much different. So I'm sure my glasses were quite rosy at that point. But yeah, I mean, it was a very good trip for me, informative, and kind of, I would say, my first time really on my own entirely, free of any obligation or expectation other than, don't run out of money before you get home. Right. Which I did. My last, train ride before going, or it was a bus I had to get from Alicante in Spain back to, Paris to get to Charles de Gaulle. And I had like no money to my name. I had at some point lost my visa, and so I was on a temporary, traveler, like a emergency backup replacement card.
Yep.
And I had like basically almost no cash left in the bank, and sitting there, and two American girls, the goodness of their heart, saw me panicking at the bus station, and were like, "Here, we'll get your bus ticket." It was like 10 euros, but I couldn't even afford to pay the 10 euros to get on the bus. But then, just open-ended ticket, so you basically get to the airport, and thankfully I did, and you just wait for the first available flight with a seat and head home.
So a couple questions: were there any structures or landscapes that stood out in your mind as being particularly meaningful, that kind of really represented what you felt, tied to your aesthetic and interest?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say, there's a couple of places that really spoke to me. One was just, Dublin. For, some people say, oh, it's gray city and there's a lot of stone, and that's true. But the scale of the space, the scale of the public space, and the way that it at the time had, and it's been years since I've been back, had integrated like LRT, transit, and this sort of, interconnectedness, like parks, stretching at like anchoring ends of the city, or parts of the city, and some of the historic buildings, not having trying to do what we've done here, where it's like you take the facade of the original building and you build on top of it or build out from it. So you kind of have the look of it. But like to be able to go into the building and it literally has not changed. Like I'm gonna reference a bar, but there's a bar there that is 1068 AD. It's been in operation as a bar / barrel house. And it's still the low ceilings, like you got a duct to get in the front door, but there's a feeling about the place that I really liked. So that was one of them. The second I would say was Paris, and there's a certain, I want to say there's a formality to how they arrange their parks and things and the buildings, and obviously it was very intentional, right? Like Paris went through this whole phase of being intentionally designed, like destroying parts of the city to create this master vision, right?
Yeah.
But when you look at the parks, and I don't mean like the big ones. The big ones are very controlled, very like symmetrical. There's a lot of pattern, and they're, don't get me wrong, they're beautiful. But the little pocket parks that you would find on some of the side streets, where it's a handful of trees and just a nice sitting area and dappled light tucked between some 3 or 4 story stone houses. And there's just like a little kid kicking a ball around, right? Like, and there's might be some iron gates or something set up just to kind of enclose the space, but it's still speaking to the street. That really caught my eye. And coming back, I still have a real love for the kind of vest pocket parks that you see around places like New York and some of the other cities.
Were there any particular experiences that you had, whether it was like a street performer or a concert that you went to or a meal that you had in an unexpected place, whether it was in an alley or a restaurant, that stood out to you from that experience? I know that these are relatively like point blank.
Yeah. I mean, that's a long way back. I'm not sure. You'll have to. Yeah, I would say it's more the experience of place, right? Like just almost the solitude of being alone in a busy place. Like at the time in my life, I think there was times like sitting on the edge of a canal and hearing somebody playing some music under a bridge farther down, and it's just you and a loaf of bread and a bottle of wine and some lights reflecting off the water. It was that kind of experience. I think I would say is most memorable.
So even what about walking into that patisserie and getting
a
loaf of bread?
I mean,
right, the smell.
Fresh. Just you can't beat that cheese and bread, and you don't even have to like think about it too much. It's just this overwhelming sense of yum.
Okay, so you return from this experience, refreshed. Engaged. You still have time. You get back in December. You still have time before the next school year.
Yeah.
So what it look like as you move forward from getting home, celebrate New Year's, all the rest of it?
Yeah. I mean, that I think was still a bit of a blur. I was still trying to just figure things out.
Yeah, fair.
And it wasn't really till I think the following summer that I went back. So I didn't go back to immediately for like the spring semester. And so it took me a while.
Okay.
I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I think it in general in my life, I've had a lot of interests in a lot of different things between art and technology and just design in general, but just being creative. And one of the things I didn't say earlier, but like before I really became passionate about doing the animation stuff, what I wanted to be was a park ranger for the Ministry of Natural Resources. I actually did the junior ranger program.
Okay.
When I was 17, I was one of the last years to do that. And I mean, that was an amazing experience, and got recommended for rehire into the MNR. And then it was like, okay, well, I'll do that, or do the animation. And I decided on the animation to do that because it really just spoke to me at the time.
Right.
But I think I'd always been so torn between different things that it was hard to know what to do with my life.
Right.
But eventually I did feel like I was ready, and this was something I not just should, but wanted to finish.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went back with I graduated with obviously a different class than I started, but great group of people still. And I mean, my original class, I still stay in touch with. We get together a couple times a year. There's some people here in the GTA. There's people in BC. But we have our annual holiday ornament exchange. We all kind of design and make ornaments for each other. If you want to participate, it's not you don't have to.
Yeah.
And then we'll get together and do like a potluck kind of thing around the holidays. But yeah, I mean, coming out of that and really being able to focus, I think again on the landscape architecture, kind of put me in a good place mentally, I think.
Okay. So you finishing school.
Yeah.
And what does it look like now professionally? What do you do?
So I came out of school and started looking for work, and I had heard through my dad that Janet Rosenberg and Associates, now Janet Rosenberg and Studio, was looking for somebody, and I put in an application, ended up with an interview, and I was probably a little more confident than I needed to be, or should have been in any right, because I'm still very fresh. But I felt like I could do this, and I got the job, and I worked there for a couple years, and it really pushed me, definitely. I was renting a place, block and a half away from their office over on Kenwood. So that's Toronto, St. Clair West area, just north of St. Clair, west of Bathurst.
Okay.
Anyway, I was renting there, and it was going well, but I was definitely putting in a lot of time, and at the same time working on passion projects on the side. I was working with an artist who designs furniture and does fine art, and he was a high school art teacher, and so we did a bunch of collaboration at that time. We designed a piece of furniture called Zitten that ended up in Euser magazine, and we took it to the interior design show in Toronto as well, and sold that. And it basically was plywood, like half-inch ply with it's basically like a side table, a bench, so longer, like I don't know, I want to say like 6 or 7 feet long.
Yeah.
But depth of a chair, and was sculpted an actual seat. So by cutting the plywood into these sort of like a 2-inch band, so it's 2-inch from the floor, square, and then it dipped for the seat, and it basically molded to your body. So
how did it mold?
So by doing half-inch slices, we basically built like almost like a topographic map, if you will.
Got it.
But turned upright. And so take that form, and obviously it's half-inch stack, so it's rough edges, a ton of sanding later, basically a smooth form, and then finished it and whatnot. But I went through. So we started the design process as a collaborative thing. I used my 3D modeling skills to model it out, and then to execute it. At that point, I'm like, okay, well, we need to be able to do this, so we got to figure out how we're going to do it. So CNCing made sense at the time. It was kind of an up and coming technology. We had a connection for U of T's architecture program. Somebody we knew had access to their CNC table that could do a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and so we started the process of going, okay, well, I'm gonna lay this out. So I drafted it up in CAD, drafted up all the profiles, assembled in 3 dimensions in AutoCAD, basically the process, like the assembly, and then figured out, okay, well, we need to be able to align these pieces. How do you keep it together while you're clamping and gluing and everything else? So we ended up with dowels at all the corners, pinned through. So continuous except for the outer layer on front and back. And then just glue, stack, and work as quick as you can, and then clamp it all down when you're done. So it's quite an involved process, but it was a heck of a lot of fun. So that's happening at the same time as doing the landscape architecture stuff with Janet's office. And then at some point, I think I was kind of ready for a change. And this, I think, was like September or October 2009. My dad called me up. He's like, I'm super busy. I know you've not been, as interested in joining the firm, because I'd always said, I don't want to do fountain design. I want to do landscape architecture. I liked what he did. Don't get me wrong. And I could see his passion for it. But at the time, I couldn't see myself being as passionate. And that had held me back for a long time. But when he called me up in 2009 and he said, hey, I'm really busy. If you need a change and you're talking about it, come work with me.
This is post-recession.
This is post-recession. Yeah.
He's busy coming out of a recession.
Yeah. He's busy.
Just to give everyone else a frame of mind of like what this means to be specialized.
Yeah. And he was always pretty busy.
Mm-hmm.
This just was a whole other level of busy. And so I said, yeah, and gave my notice at Janet's office, and basically I've been working full time in the fountain business since then.
At one point in this conversation, Steve talked about walking into a bar in Dublin that had been in continuous operation since 1068. Low ceilings, original stone, a front door you had to duck to get through. He loved it precisely because nothing had been touched up. Nothing had been faked. Nothing had been replaced with something cheaper and easier. The bones of the place were still the bones of the place. That kind of thinking about built environment, about permanence, authenticity, and the integrity of materials is what brings the doors to mind every single time I have a conversation like this one. Martin and Marta and their team have built a reputation in this industry for exactly that standard. Doors and windows that are designed with intention, crafted with care, and built to be part of the space for a very long time. Not an afterthought, not a commodity, a considered element of architecture. If you are working on a project right now where the entry experience matters, where seeing from inside to outside, framing that view matters, where the threshold between outside and inside is doing real work in the design, the doors deserves a place in that conversation. Reach out to Martin and Marta directly and tell them the show sent you. Head to the liner notes for everything you need, or drop me a line at Jonathan, that's Jonathan, at issuedforconstruction.ca, and I will connect you personally. And while you're at it, if this episode has been worth your time today, please take 30 seconds and give the show a 5-star rating on whatever platform you are listening on right now. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, wherever you are. It costs you nothing, and it means everything for the show's reach. Genuinely appreciate it. Now, back to Steve.
It's certainly been an adventure, not without its challenges. It was definitely a big learning curve still, like for all the stuff and experience that I'd had in doing the mock-ups and seeing him work from being a kid all the way, into my adulthood. There was probably still a 5-year learning curve to really, really get it, right? Like it's a combination of not just understanding how water moves, the fluid dynamics of it, and how it sounds, and the performative aesthetic that people see when they're walking down the street. It's it's the mechanics behind it, and well, how does that relate to how you build your structure, and how does that relate to all the details, and how does that relate to your building infrastructure, and how do you make all these different parts work well together? Mm-hmm. So it took me a long time.
Well, I mean, you just do the basic math on this. If you were working, and again, this is going to be rough, mm-hmm. but 5 years at call it 40 hours a week, 50 weeks
Yeah.
a year. You're 2,000, 5 years, 10,000 hours. There's your 10,000 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Basically, that's
So-
that's very, yeah. Good point. It's I guess the saying's true. Shoot, never really thought about it that way.
Like
Yeah.
there you become an expert in your field in some capacity, right?
Yeah.
And you take everything you've learned prior to that and you compound it, and
Yeah.
now you know what you're doing really well.
Yeah.
So tell me about what did you start out doing when you were working for him in those first couple of years?
Sure.
Were you drawing? Were you still doing modeling? Like, what did it look like?
Yeah, I think for the most part it was CAD. I was basically a draftsman.
Yep.
At that point, he would redline things. I would do the work on that and kind of just take the load as much as I could. And as I went, I started also kind of, it wouldn't just be, at some point it's transitioned a bit from drafting to also like looking at, okay, what is the specification? What did we actually need? Starting to look at calculations for, flow rates over weirs and jets and all that stuff, and kind of just thrown into all of it. And my dad would correct me when I was wrong, and we would have discussions about things. He was always, and this is something I've always really appreciated, he was always willing to just be like, hey, this is why I'm thinking about this, or we should talk about this part of it, because it's it's something, I remember this project, we'd seen this thing, and this one time this was the result, and so now we've got to think about that in the context of this project, and how does that play in here. So whether it's for example a cascade, basically a set of stairs with water flowing down it, when you do that kind of thing, when it's straight and straight set of stairs up and down, the stairs aren't turning to the left or whatever, it's very straightforward. It's water starts at the top, water goes to the bottom.
Gravity does a lot of the work.
Gravity does all the work. And if you're at that point, there's sort of only two things that really matter. One is there like a pool behind each step where that water can sort of still itself and become calm again between each step, and so you get glassy effect all the way down and reflective? Or is it a step where there's no containment, and now it's this roiling, frothy, aerated mass that really picks up this great active texture, like you would see in rapids.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start from there, but then there's things that you don't know if it's going to be an issue, and you end up having to test.
Right.
And so this is where the mock-up stuff comes in. And so like at one point, and I think this was University of Cincinnati, there was a cascade, and the cascade needed to actually come in where in plan, the top step and bottom step were very much out of alignment. So it's like a 45-degree angle coming down the stairs. But the water wants to take the easiest course it can.
Mm-hmm.
So those first steps, it just keeps piling up. And so you have this huge mass of water on the one side where it's been piling up all the way down, and the other side is basically dry.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you deal with that?
Angle them.
You gotta backslope them. Yeah. So you're creating this pool just enough depth to cast that water to the side before it falls over the next one. And you can still get the aeration across everything without it stilling if you find that sweet spot between how far down you go and how far over you have to go.
Right.
And I remember building that mock-up.
You were so happy.
With it was cold.
So
I think this was like probably a December kind of mock-up. So it hadn't quite gotten absolutely frozen yet. And it was in a garage, and we had this like fiberglass pool, and built like, I think it was an 8-foot long section. And with like a wooden box at the back, and you do your best to keep it from sealing, because you're basically making out of plywood and 2x4s and 2x6s and paint it to look like granite. And so that was the artsy part of it. I got to make fake stone out of wood. But the understanding the fluid mechanics of it
Yeah.
and taking that sort of thing, like, I guess, yeah, that's sort of where I'm going with it in terms of just that there's so much to understand and technically,
Yeah.
and then figuring it out and then working back from those solutions to get to, okay, well, if this, then that, and by if this, it's if this aesthetic, then this mechanics. And so then you have to, okay, figure out, okay, well, how much space do we need? What kind of infrastructure do we need? And the challenge is always, well, you're starting the construction projects and design projects. Everybody knows it's schematic design, design development, construction drawings, right? And then contract admin. Well, if you're starting with an aesthetic and you have all this stuff to work out, sometimes you need to do those tests to inform just your schematic design so that you can actually go to the rest of the team, because it's never just us, and be like, hey, okay, you need this kind of infrastructure. This is how much space taking we are probably going to need now that we understand how it has to work, because nature is nature. And we're basically just creating, it's contrived, but mimicking natural things. So yeah, it can be a little bit of cart before the horse kind of thing if you're not careful. And so it becomes very much a challenge.
Well, in the same ways that, like, you know, a residential or commercial public civic architects are going to use modeling for their projects to understand how light's gonna move through it. Right? How they can play with that.
Absolutely.
You can understand elevation. You can understand the experience of what it looks like on mass in some capacity comparatively to a person. There's like so many different ways to be able to look at that.
Yeah.
But also fundamentally, it makes complete sense to understand, because you don't want to go through the process of designing something that can't get built. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, you know, depending on the situation, if it's something that we understand mostly, but it's, you know, it's that finer minutia that needs to get worked out. Like, okay, at what point are you going to be happy with the radius of the stone for how it delivers the water over the edge? And, you know, because that radius makes a difference in terms of how that water is going to accelerate or cling to the surface.
Right.
And that surface tension comes into play. And so you might test that sort of thing between SD and DD or during DD. But, you know, when it's something that is entirely new, you kind of have to do it even before SD, just to get it worked out. And we got one project right now where I think we've convinced the client that it's necessary. And so in the backyard, just down the street, I'm going to be building a mock-up over the next couple months in all likelihood. And just to test faking a river.
I mean, so let's provide some level of context for people listening to understand scale.
Yeah.
Because there are different, obviously, scales to what a fountain can do.
Absolutely. So, I mean, when we talk about scale, we're talking about everything from a small architectural backyard fountain, but, you know, the type we get into is typically on the higher end residential, if we're going to go into that realm. And things that are generally a little bit more challenging or creative. So everything from open joint pavers with fog emanating out underneath and it's glowing light out of the joints, and catching that, to rain effects and very simple things. There is on smallest scale, I would say, that we've ever done as an office, and this was more my father than myself. Post 9/11, there was a number of memorials that were built. So in New York, there's two particular projects that are kind of the dichotomy of scale, two opposite ends.
And these are what you designed?
I was more involved with the second one, but the first one, my father was very intimately involved in. And that is Ken Smith project at the American Express building. They lost a number of people. And so there is a fountain there that is literally one teardrop per person that falls once a minute. And so it's literally a drop of water once a minute landing on each of their names as a memorial to them. It's a really moving piece when you're there. There's some very fine nuance to making that work, because at that scale and that little water, you're worried about flies blocking your holes. Like it's really tiny. And so we get down to something that small. And then right outside is the WTC Memorial, which is the footprints of the original buildings.
Yep.
1,600 feet of waterfall falling 30 some odd feet over an edge, and 50,000 gallons a minute or something like that. It's completely the opposite. It's presence of space. Both are very different presence of space, but the same effect. Like there's a certain power to it. But in terms of scale, like you're talking in terms of, for mechanicals, probably 25,000 in mechanicals versus, almost 500 million. So it's a orders of magnitude in difference. Yeah. And so
we just spent the better part of an hour talking about water, about how it moves, how it sounds, how it makes people feel when it is designed with real intention and real craft behind it. Steve Euser's dedicated his professional life to understanding water at a level most people never will. And what comes through in everything he describes is that water done right is transformative. And you know that because you've experienced it. It changes a space. It changes the people in it. Yuri and the team at Aquanta Pools share that belief. Aquanta designs and builds pools and water features for clients who are not looking for a hole in the ground filled with water. They're looking for something that belongs, something that is designed with the same care and intelligence as the rest of the property around it. Whether that is a residential pool that feels like a natural extension of the landscape or a water feature with genuine character and presence, Aquanta brings the expertise and the standard of craft that a project like you would design demands. Everything Steve shared today about what separates a water feature that moves people from one that just runs, I think you'll appreciate working with a team that thinks about these things the same way he does. Reach out to Yuri and let him know Issued for Construction sent you. Head to the liner notes for all the details, or get in touch with me directly at jonathan@issuedforconstruction.ca. That's JONATHAN. And I'm happy to make the connection. And if today's episode resonated with you, please do one more thing before you move on. Leave a 5-star rating on whatever platform you listen on. It is the single biggest thing you can do to help this show grow and keep conversations like this one coming. Thank you for being here. Now, let's get back to the conclusion with Steve.
When we deal with projects, we're open to a lot of different scales. At this point in our careers, it's, are we going to do something interesting?
Right. So now that everyone listening, as you can appreciate the magnitude of those two and how important they are to New Yorkers and to Americans in general, and really pretty much to almost anyone that wants to live in a free country, like what those things are supposed to embody and how symbolic they are. Which is funny because we're recording this now. It's pretty much, we'll call it the beginning of May, end of April. This will come out a couple months from now, but I'm heading to New York in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I'm actually I'm going to go and I'm going to go
see it.
I'm going to go look at your work.
Amazing.
I've been there before and I've seen it, but it means something different.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's talk about like other places in the world that, if you're a tourist outside of New York, you'll have likely seen something.
Sure.
That Dew has touched.
Sure. Well, I'll start close to home. So here in Toronto, if you've been to the Doggy Fountain, which is Bursey Park downtown, that's us. If you've been to the fountains, Dundas Square, that's us. Cloud Garden, which I think is now due for revitalization. I'm not sure if that one's running still. It's been 20 some odd years. That was our office. Shoot. And then coming outside the city, I should say before I forget, like Love Park. I know there was some contention around that with the water being dyed and going green, and the whole purpose of that was trying to make the system as environmentally conscious as we could. And so now there's some changes that will be implemented over the coming years.
Yeah.
But needless to say, working with like CCXA on numerous projects around the area. And then you go farther, we have work in Calgary, Devonian Gardens. We have work currently. Project is actually in process, which is Olympic Plaza. I think I'm allowed. I think I'm allowed to say that. It's been announced. I think I'm okay to say that because it's been announced. It's gone through. The renderings have been released to the public and whatnot. So that one's in process. That'll be a very cool project as well. That's with, again, CCXA, and Eventscape is doing this big sculptural tree that jets will be emanating from, but they're actually shooting from birds on the tree.
Cool.
So cool.
Yeah.
Very, very fun. Very, very much in line with that firm's style.
Yeah.
New York, we've done a number. I would say there's a bunch of residences stretched across the U.S. that, higher end residences that we've done, and locally as well.
You've done stuff also. Have you not done stuff throughout Asia?
We have. So Middle East, Al Halil Bank Tower in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
And then there's a big circular fountain in front of that tower building. And then a lot of the theme parks, actually. We got in to working a lot with Forec, who are also Toronto-based. They do theme park design and theme park and resorts and entertainment sort of things.
Yeah.
Really excellent group of people. And so we've had the pleasure of working on a number of different theme parks, Lego Lands and Wanda Lands in China, Shenzhen, Shanghai.
Incredible.
Lego Korea. We've been very lucky in that regard. It's fun stuff. Like, you doing everything from, water shooting from a Lego figure to the flume rides and like rapid river rides and kind of calculating for that stuff, running jets out of pools and figuring out sometimes it's just basic, like, okay, well, we've got a big large collecting body of water because we have to deal with runoff on site. How do we filter that and keep it so it doesn't look like a cesspool?
Right.
So it's a requirement, and you never know what kind of water quality you're going to deal with. So dealing with just that basic infrastructure on top of having to deal with the aesthetic stuff, it's like, okay, well, all of these things have to work together. The whole site has to work together.
Without telling me specifically a project that I will ask about defining, don't name it because I don't even know the answer to it. What has been one of the biggest challenges that you've come across when trying to design a project like you've described that didn't go as planned and you had to pivot?
That's a good question.
Just describe the challenge versus the actual name of the project and where it is.
Yeah. I have to think about that one a sec.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That means a lot of it goes to plan.
Yeah, a lot of it goes to plan. I mean, there's times where execution for one reason or another doesn't line up.
Yep.
And the challenge is always, I would say more often than not, the challenge is grading. Mechanics wise, it's, doing plumbing and stuff like that is fairly straightforward.
Yeah, it's manageable.
It's manageable.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not to say there's not a specialty involved. Usually it's specialty fountain contractors who will do the construction side because we're only design.
Of course. And
so you need that sort of knowledgeable hand to work on these because they are highly complex. It's not like your backyard swimming pool kind of deal. Usually there's controls and a level of detail and nuance that's required that is far exceeding a little waterfall going into your backyard swimming pool. That said, I would say there's one project in particular that didn't quite go as planned. I'm not sure if they've sort of shifted gears on it. And I think, for a long time it still ran, but the grading became an issue. It was very finely graded, and it's one of those things where getting specification right and getting the right contractor for the job is not always the easiest thing, because particularly when you're dealing with municipal or city-owned projects, there is always this underlying need to meet their procurement process. Right. And I'm going to try to say this as gently as I can.
Anyone listening to this right now
Yeah.
that works in the field of design can appreciate what you just said.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Yeah. I'm trying to be gentle about
and
this.
if you're listening to this and you're a part of the procurement process with the city, understand there's a lot of strife associated with it on the design side.
Yeah. It's not, and it's not that, these things can't be overcome. It is more that when you do something and the requirement is the lowest bidder, you get what you pay for. Yeah. And when you're dealing with something this complex with this many integrated elements, and
it's always the same thing. You hear this in this industry all the time, and it doesn't just ring true in this industry. It's in anything.
Yeah. Like it's really, I cannot stress enough how worthwhile it is for a city to actually invest in something and spend the dollars to do it right.
Yeah.
You'll get what you pay for, and it will last. And you're not going to have to rip it out in 10 years.
I think the easiest way to describe this failure, and it's not always a failure, but when it is a failure, when you say you get what you pay for, you just think if you've ever had it, eating a Big Mac combo.
Yeah.
And it might taste great when you're eating it.
Yeah. But you feel not so great later.
You feel it afterwards. You go and eat a really delicious, healthy meal from a place that has it's organics and it costs the same thing.
Yeah.
And you probably feel pretty energized afterwards.
Yeah.
You don't feel sluggish.
Yeah.
You get what you pay for.
I 100% agree.
So
I've got two projects in mind, different things. One was grading. One was the plumbing contractor execution, because they didn't get a fountain specialist. And both of them had problems, and work had to be done. It's tough. I mean, when you pour concrete in the rain, when you shouldn't be pouring concrete in the rain for a large continuous slab that has to be accurate. And I mean accurate. It better be good. Otherwise, I mean, and what ended up happening was grinding for weeks, and then that changes the finish of your finished product.
Yep.
Right? It's not, and there's only so far you can go before you start compromising your concrete. Because for people who don't know, the minimum required amount of coverage on rebar in the concrete, that's the metal rods that tie the concrete together. So adding the tensile strength to the concrete, which is great structural or compressive strength, that is 2 inches or 50 millimeters. So if you spend, you're grinding down from what was 2 inches of cover to now an inch of cover, your chances of having that concrete pop later on due to thermal expansion and contraction, especially in the kind of climate we have here in Canada.
Just for layman terms, meaning it's going to buckle because the ground is going to thaw.
Yeah, it's going to crack, and they're going to crack at different rates because they're too close to the surface, and or move at different rates, I should say. And so you end up creating excessive stresses within there, and at a certain point, it just gives, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then on the other project where it was a plumbing install, and it's the contractor didn't have experience in doing the plumbing,
right?
And just they kind of looked at the drawings and did whatever.
Well, so tell me, what do you do to correct that in those scenarios? Like the one where they had to shave down the concrete. Is there anything that that you can do to provide a solution for them, or is it something where they just have to take it all out and do it again?
To a certain extent, some of it could be corrected,
Okay.
and there were certain areas that had to be done. And then it's basically, okay, well, if we are going to modify this or accept this alternative solution, this change, how do we integrate that into what we can retain?
Right.
And that is the challenge. So, sometimes it's, okay, well, we're going to take it back in a very specific way. And when we deal with our surface finish, we're going to seed the surface finish or reseed the surface finish after. So there's a cost to the contractor.
Of course.
That, obviously.
But
it's, at least then you're retaining that integrity to the greatest degree possible.
Well, and you're looking at something that's hopefully going to look intentional versus an afterthought to the error.
Yeah. And that's it.
So tell me, just kind of from a global scale,
mm-hmm.
how often are you brought in early in a project?
Mm-hmm.
How often are you an afterthought to the project?
Ooh.
What's the percentage?
Percentage wise, that's a good question. So I would say it really depends on our client.
Okay.
So oftentimes we have a lot of repeat clients.
Yep.
And the ones who we've worked with for a number of years understand, even if they have turnover, there's like this inherent knowledge that gets passed down in the company.
Yes.
And they'll go, okay, we have a project. It's in concept phase. We want to get you guys on board so that we can understand what we're getting into, what will work.
Well, because you become a part of the infrastructure of the overall construction.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So, example, talking with Janet Rosenberg in studio on a project that we're working on them with, and I can't name the project.
Don't worry.
But it's one of those things where as they're going through their design process, conceptual design process to bring towards donors and before it goes to public, it's like, okay, we have these ideas, but we want to make sure that they actually are viable ideas and what might it entail, like ballpark it and back of the napkin, and we can sit there and go, okay, if you take this approach, you can try these things. Here's the limits to what based on what you've rendered so far as your concept. This is what you might need to achieve that. And so there's great clients like that. And then there's the flip side where it's a good client, but either they're being brought on late or you're being brought on late. And so now it's a rush to catch up, and you're scrambling because the infrastructure hasn't been allowed for, and the design of the rest of the systems and building, nothing allows for you to do thing
was forecasted for what you're now brought into.
But they've shown renderings to a client who's bought into this idea that is now, oh my God, how is this even possible?
Well, I mean, they've already used up most of that client's budget at this point.
Yeah.
Which doesn't leave you with much. And so now you have to...
Yeah, you're working within that.
The reality of what
try and be...
like.
Well, it's...
Diplomatic?
It's as diplomatic as you can, being as... forthright about what the realities of those requirements will be.
Right.
Just like even in a meeting, just, hey, I'm just going to, while we're doing this, while we're talking about this is what the back of the napkin math says. And I've spent time over the years developing some Excel spreadsheets to save myself some time on the math so that while I'm in these conversations, I can be like, okay, plug this number in. What does that mean for how much water in theory we might need?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean for pipe sizes? And then work backwards. And so it becomes very much challenging, but it's also, I think, at that point, really helpful for the client as our client, which would be the architect, engineer, design firm.
Yep.
What it actually means, because oftentimes when we are brought on late, we're looking at and being shown details that they have started for a fountain, so they had something to price, and the pipe sizes are like, it's like a 2-inch pipe for something that requires a 12-inch pipe.
Right.
And to give you a sense of scale for water, every pipe diameter increase is double the flow. So in a 2-inch pipe, 50 GPM. a 3-inch
GPM?
GPM, gallons per minute. Sorry. Yes.
It's okay.
Um,
I just want to make sure people
yeah.
understand what we're talking
You
about.
know, that's fair. I know. Yeah. Gallons per minute. So 50 gallons a minute, it, for context, is like 10 garden hoses. Your garden hose in your typical backyard is 5 gallons a minute. And I apologize, that is an imperial form and we're in Canada, but like this is what I
We're all good.
So 50 gallons a minute at 2-inch, 100 gallons a minute at 3-inch, so on and so forth. So you're looking at like 1,200 gallons, 1,400 gallons in a 12-inch pipe, but they've only shown a 2-inch pipe. And to put that much water through a 2-inch pipe, you will literally destroy the pipe.
Yeah, it'll burst.
It'll burst. And it's not physically possible.
Yeah.
So it certainly creates a lot of challenges and sometimes months of meetings where you're educating and you're holding their hand through it and you're being as gentle as you can, but also have to be forceful because there's only so much that the physics and the mechanics and the engineering allow.
Forget that part.
Yeah.
There's also so much that your fee can allow.
Well, yeah.
In educating a client.
Yeah.
Before you're now already in the red and you're not providing the service that you intended to provide, because now this project is a strain as of your resources as a business.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just eating all that time up.
Yeah.
And you still have to do the work.
Yeah. Of
course.
It's
just, you end up doing it more than once because they don't quite understand yet and they want to explore every option.
So for anyone that's listening to this, I don't care where you live in the world, if you're an architect or you're a designer and there's a contemplation of some form of water feature associated with what you're doing,
as early as possible, please.
Bring this person in early, and this person, his name is Steve, okay? Call due, bring them in early and resolve some of the questions early on, so that you can have a project that's going to flow properly.
Yeah.
I see what I did there.
Very nice. I like it.
Steve, I got to tell you, man, it has been so formative, so interesting to have you on to talk about all of this. I think that there are, I'm going to have to assume if you're listening at this point, can you do me a favor? Like, comment, okay? If you're in Spotify, you can comment about what you've taken away from this. Cause I think I have found it so engaging, so interesting. You can also head over to Instagram. You can take a look at the work that Steve's going to want to feature from Do on Instagram. Last thing I'd also ask, please, ratings help with exposure. If you can go out there and give 5 stars to this thing on whatever device you're listening on, whether it's our platform, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Good Pods, whatever it is, please, 5 stars, that helps. Steve, thank you, man. I know that you got a deadline, and so we've actually been able to achieve what you needed in terms of time.
Perfect. I love it.
Thaned for coming, man.
Much appreciated.
I hope you have a safe walk home.
Yeah. Yes. Excellent.